What I have in my hands is the first ever suspension kit designed and engineered specifically for the Cybertruck. This is our CyberShock. This essentially works in conjunction with your factory suspension and adds additional damping control to the rear of your vehicle. It works flawlessly with the factory air shock, the factory rear steer, as well as maintains all of your factory ride height adjustability. These vehicles from the factory, as you were able to drive down a line and hit imperfections in the road, it can be a little bit floaty and yield a bit of a bouncy response, which doesn't essentially reset your vehicle's composition to prepare it for the next imperfection in the road. It would essentially jostle the car a lot more aggressively. The whole purpose of this shock being added is you have a custom compression and rebound knobs separate from each other that allow you to dial in your shock and your vehicle's rear end suspension handling to be dialed in for your use case. So whether you're towing something and you have a big trailer load behind you, or you have your truck load filled to the brim, this allows you the adjustable options to correct your vehicle's handling to ensure that you're able to drive down the road as comfortably and smoothly as possible, regardless of how much you're towing. What makes this kit so special is it is a bolt-on kit. We literally just have to remove the wheel and one plastic accessory, and we can get this thing installed on the truck. Now, without further ado, let's get to it. First, let's go over everything that's included in your kit. We have the shock itself with the adjustable compression and rebound knobs on that. You have the lower shock mount, which essentially connects to the lower control arm, the sleeve, bolt, and lock nut for that to lock that into place. Then you have the upper bracket itself with the 2 insert nuts, as well as 2 bolts, 4 washers, and a couple lock nuts. And these are designed to mount the shock itself to the upper and lower brackets. Now, once you have your Cybertruck in jack mode and up in the air, we need to get these rear wheels off. So using a 21mm socket, go ahead and remove the 6 lugs retaining these wheels to the vehicle. Using a 10mm socket, remove the 3 10mm bolts that are securing this plastic covering to the lower control arm. All right, guys, before I install the lower bracket onto the lower control arm, I just need to address something. This is our rear sway bar. If you're curious about learning more, go ahead and check our website. But moving on, this is the lower bracket that we're gonna install onto the lower control arm. Now, before we install this bracket, we do need to go ahead and remove these 2 push clips that are currently securing this cable assembly to the lower control arm. Let's go ahead and pull up on those. You should release from that lower control arm, like so. And then you'll just pull those and tuck those out of the way for now. Now you're going to take the bracket itself. Now on this bracket, you'll see there's a channel here, but you essentially want to locate this bracket in this particular location. And then this hole in the bracket itself will correspond with the hole on the top of the lower control arm here. And once everything is resting in place, you will take that provided bolt and drop it in like so. Now that you have that bolt facing on the bottom side, you can reach in within the lower control arm to apply pressure to the top of that bolt. Slide the sleeve over like so, and then you should have still some exposed threads, and then you'll run your lock nut underneath there. And now you're ready to apply final torque. Now when you do apply final torque, you're gonna feed the Allen key through the top here to allow pressure on the top of that bolt so that you can go ahead and counterhold as you torque this lower lock nut. Installed the lower bracket, we're going to move on to the upper bracket. Before we install it, we do need to remove these 2 factory lock nuts using either a 27mm end wrench or an adjustable wrench like this. Now that we've removed those 2 factory nuts, we're going to replace them with the provided billet nuts, as well as the brand new bracket that essentially acts as a mounting point for the top of the shock. When doing so, make sure that you are paying attention to the orientation of this, as there is a little bit of a step lip. We want that step lip facing downward, and this will allow for additional clearance for that shock between the fork of that upper control arm. Now that we have our upper and lower mounting brackets installed onto the car, we're ready to install the shock itself. So you're going to take the shock as well as 2 of the provided bolts and washers just to go ahead and lock these things into place. But before you do so, be sure that you turn all of these adjuster knobs down to their softest setting to ensure that the shock is the easiest to work with when you are trying to adjust the length and mount them to the upper and lower brackets. Now that we have this shock ready to install on the brackets themselves, you want to choose the piston side facing upward, and you're going to insert it on the underside of the control arm here. Slide it up into the bracket like so. Now, before we apply final torque to that upper 19mm bolt that we just threw in there, we want to make sure that we throw in the lower 19mm bolt just to make sure that shock is fully mounted before we apply that final torque. Now that we have the upper and lower sections of the fork torqued down, that is just about it for the installation itself. Now we have to button this car up and put everything back together. First, we're going to take that cable harness that we moved out of the way and move it back into where those push clips mount on that lower control arm, just to make sure that that's all secure and good to go. Next, we're going to readjust our compression and rebound back to our preferred setting. Next, using a 10mm socket, re-secure the factory lower control arm cover to the lower control arm. And just like that, today's installation is complete. If you have any additional questions and concerns, go ahead and let us know in the comments below. And like you saw in the video, this vehicle is far more stable than it was from the factory. So no matter what the utilitarian use for your vehicle is, whether it be off-roading or hauling with your Cybertruck, this rear shock is the product for you.